Handa na ba you?
Handa na mi.
Handa na mi.
Handa na mi.
Handa na mi.
Handa na.
May isa kang pwedeng maging abogado, Secretary Panelo, Soljon Calida.
Grabe yun, sobra.
Pili nuts. Ibig sabihin, pili lang po kayo ng isa. Inday Sara or Manny Pacquiao?
Manny Pacquiao.
PGMA or PRRD?
PRRD.
Ang hirap naman ng sagot ng tanong.
Galing ng mga question. Leading, ha?
Charot or true lulu? Charot po, not true. Ang true lulu is totoo.
These don't mean anything.
Nahuli ka na ba ni Mrs.?
Charot!
Ang Ilonggo ba, kahit galit malambing pa rin?
Trolala.
True lulu po.
Trololo.
Naniniwala ka ba sa mga alien?
Chereret.
Sulong mga kapatid o urong mga kapatid? Anti-terror law.
Urong mga kapatid, hindi lang kapatid, mga kamag-anak, lahat na, urong.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lord Duera.
Wherever you
And now, the end is near.
Balat kayo pala.
I am woman.
Maraming hindi naniniwalang may forever eh.
Hindi pa niya ako kilala, mahal ko na. Anong bahagi ng iyong katawan ang gusto mong ibalik sa dati? Nagtatapos.
It's been a wonderful experience tong pag-guest ko sa inyong show.
I really enjoyed the interview.
Ngayon lang ako nakaranas ng ganito.
Ang patanggal na stress.
Maraming salamat, lalo na sa ratatat.
Ratatat! Ratsadang tanong, tapatan at tarang, tahan.
Good morning! Happy Monday, November 1, 2021. Baka may mga nagmamonitor sa atin dyan sa mga sementeryo. Ano ba kamusta bang weather dyan, Michael?
Bawal na ang pagpasok sa mga sementeryo no October 30 pa.
For those who don't know, I'm in Canada. That's why I'm not very aware.
So yun
of the
siya.
protocols.
Actually,
So,
nung
ano ang pwede,
29,
Michael?
nung 29 nga, meron na nagpunta pa pero pinagbawal na rin ng ibang sementeryo kaya na nagbulumihanan sila dahil hindi nakadalaw sa kanilang mga mahal sa buhay na nasa sementeryo.
Nako, okay.
Yun.
Okay. Well, I'm
Para
also sad.
to avoid the super spreader events. Yan ang ano rito
Oo
talaga
nga.
sa Pilipinas.
Gayahin nyo na lang ako. Gusto ko mambisitahin ng aking mga magulang. Ay pinagdasal ko na lang sila dito. All the way
Yan.
in Canada. Oo nga.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a Monday and it's a holiday. Yan.
Yes, November 1, 2021. Samahan niyo muli kami sa ilang minutong balitaan. Dito lamang sa Politiskoop. Ako si Ina Andolong.
Michael Fajatin po, inyong lingkod.
Okay, tumatakbo sa pagkapangalawang Pangulo, pagka-VP. Ang panauhin natin ngayong umaga, kulang man daw sila ng pondo at hindi man kasing sikat ng iba, lalaban daw sila ng katandem niya para wakasin ang rehimeng Duterte at ang pagbabalik ng impluwensya ng mga Marcos.
Yan. Galit sila sa mga trapo. Yan. At para sa panauhin natin ngayon, walang positibong maiiwan ng Administrasyong Duterte sa taong bayan. Yan ang sabi niya.
Opo, ang ating bisita, Partido Lakas ng Masa Vice Presidential Bet, former Congressman, Professor Walden Bello. Good morning,
Good
sir.
morning.
Good morning. Good evening.
Yeah, opo,
I'm
opo.
in New York at this point.
Oh,
Mm-mm.
we're on the same
Yeah, hemisphere.
Nasa Canada po, I am in Toronto.
Okay.
Ayan.
Pareho ang oras pala namin ni sir.
Oo,
Tapos
kaya
medyo-
kayo
medyo late pala sa inyo ngayon, sir.
Oo,
Ako sa
mga night
Manila.
owl kayo. Kami dito ay sinisikatan ng araw habang kayo ay dapat patulog na. Yan.
Well,
Yes.
we'll just try to get our energy up, di ba?
Yes, yeah.
Oo nga, oo nga. Anyway, sir, syempre hindi po, you weren't you substituted. Kaya po kayo ngayon tumatakbo ng VP. You said in your statement, na dahil ito sa evil, ano yung term na ginamit po ni sir? Axis of evil ng mga Duterte at Marcos. I'm wondering, sir, what do you dislike most? Anong pinaka-ayaw niyo po ba na nangyayari ngayon sa Administrasyong Duterte, which probably also is among the reasons why you decided to run for Vice President?
Well, unang-una yung the record, a terrible record of extrajudicial killings. No?
Mhm.
The estimate is about 20,000 people have lost their lives, especially in 2016, 2017, and partly in 2018. So, alam mo na, I mean, mahal ang buhay and may proseso in terms of judging people. No? You just don't take them out with a gunshot to the head and then pass it off as, naglaban daw. At alam naman natin na hindi totoo yan. I mean, people are not that stupid to resist arrest, no? Especially when they are against, a huge number of police forces. No? So, isa yan. And then secondly, especially now na napapakita dito sa mga hearings ng Blue Ribbon Committee, no? And then yung malampaya sale. Yung facade ni Duterte na anti-corruption, it's been torn apart. And people are like quite really upset by this. No? At the worst thing is yung hypocrisy na hindi raw corrupt, pero naglalabasan na dami pala mga cronies who have been benefiting from this whole thing. No? And then yung mismanagement of the COVID response. No? I mean, we're in last place in terms of having been able to deal with this, according to Reuters, no? And some others. Kasi nga, yung approach has been a militarized police approach instead of bringing people along to participatory response to the pandemic. What you've had is top down, rely on the police, and then at times even attack the frontline workers. If you remember in August 2020, when they wanted, sabi nila, kailangan ng isang time out so we can assess alternatives, sinabi ng Pangulo, ano bang gusto nyo? Lumalaban mo kayo sa akin? Kayo ba ay itinataguyod mo ay isang revolusyon? I mean, to attack frontline workers that way was not simply uncalled for. It was extremely demoralizing. So he's been a terrible president. Wala namang economic advances that have been created. The Rice Tariffication Act, which was demanded by an external power, the World Trade Organization, has brought poverty to our workers. And then this guy, when he was running for office, sabi niya, wawakasin na raw niya ang contractualization. And then he goes back on that. No? And then, of course, many other things. For all intents and purposes, he's been, a puppet of China. Now, he had said na pupunta raw siya sa Spratlys to raise the flag of Philippine sovereignty. He backed out on that. Actually, I led a congressional mission to the Spratlys in 2011, and I led a flag ceremony. Kaya Duterte is a coward, and we did something that was really needed for the people back then to show that hindi tayo atras sa mga threats ng isang superpower. And then the last thing I would just like to say is he kept on saying that he would tear up yung visiting forces agreement with the United States, no? Which has been a real problem for our country. And if you know, I wrote an article then, which was widely circulated, saying Duterte is a mass murderer, but I support his idea of tearing up the visiting forces agreement. And then he backed out of that too. So it's been a series of promises, unfulfilled he's probably been, together with Marcos, the worst president that this country has had. I mean, not Bongbong Marcos, because that guy will never become president, but Bongbong's dad, the old dictator.
Okay, very clear. Ang daming binigay ng mga rason, no? And
that's
sir,
quite
you
expensive.
don't see anyone from the lineup of presidential candidates enough to stand up against these things that you mentioned. Is that also why you wanted to join
Yes,
the elections?
let's face it, no? I mean, we're getting on in years, di ba, Michael?
Opo, opo.
And I mean, not you, me.
Opo. We both. You and me both.
Yeah,
No?
in my at my age, no, and I'm 75, no, and as an academic, what I really want to do is to write about things, on that I am really interested in, especially international politics. No? And I have been writing on, for instance, the rivalry between China and the United States, and I've come out with a book and a number of other things on that. No? That's what I'd like to do, but then you have this big challenge right now of Marcos and Duterte, what I call the axis of evil. And some people have said, "Are you saying they're the evil empire?" Oh, sige na, evil empire na rin yan. That's the reason why. I mean, we should stand up to be counted instead of enjoying 20% discount senior privileges, no? And just taking it easy. I think it is a time of emergency. That I think everybody realizes that, and this is the reason that I stepped forward. When I was drafted, I was asked to run as the tandem ni Coyote. That's why I accepted. Now, if you're asking me about the others, Manny Pacquiao is he was my vice chairman when I was the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs. And for 5 years, he attended only one meeting, one session of the committee. And during that session, I even had to teach him what to say. So the guy's not serious. I mean, iniwan niya ang lahat ng trabaho sa akin. So, I know the guy. If you ask me naman about Senator Lacson, up to just a few months ago, he was an ally of Duterte. Siya ngayon naging principal sponsor ng anti-terror law sa Kongreso. No? And si Isko Moreno naman, I think he's all flash. No? Yeah, okay, good looking and that sort of thing. Pero it's all superficial. In fact, he said, nabibigyan raw niya ng cabinet position si President Duterte. And he has, in fact, come on record saying that he admires President Duterte. Actually, ang tingin namin dyan, he wants to be Duterte 2.0. No?
2.0.
And now si Vice President Leni Robredo, I have high respect for her integrity, and I've said that. No? But I'm just a bit worried about the fact that she has not, despite the fact that we've tried to set a meeting with her for 3 months, that has not happened, not because of lack of any push on our side, but it's been more of her cordon sanitaire keeping us out, no? And then I thought na bad judgment yung naging domination of her Senate slate by Villanueva, Subiri, Binay, Gordon, all of these traditional politicians, no? Na and it is supposed to be a reform slate. So I think there's an element of bad judgment there. And I think the problem, is she's surrounded by a fairly conservative set of people that prevents her from reaching out to her real allies like us. No? So for all those reasons, I have decided to run as Caliody's vice president. No? And I really think that it's a great first for the country na isang manggagawan, kagaya ni Calyody, is out there contesting the presidency. And I think si Calyody knows more about ordinary people's lives, than the other candidates for president. Kasi galing siya sa masa eh. At alam talaga niya, gagap talaga niya yung mga condition. In fact, I don't know whether you've interviewed him, but I think he's said, people have said that he's got a more concrete sense of people's lives than the traditional politicians that he's up against. And mahalaga yan kasi it's yung connect with the masa that is very key. Kasi pag wala ka talagang yung emotional connect na yun, you'll promise everything at election time, but when it comes to bringing your promises and bringing your work down to people and committing and doing what you're committed to do, then that's when politicians turn around and make public office just a means of money-making scheme. And I think this is 99% of our politicians look at public office as a case of making money out of the office.
Michael.
Ako, Walden, please correct me on the accuracy of what I'm going to say. Is it not true that you have been fielded primarily before the elections as president po, no? I'm not demeaning Calyody. He has proven to be one of the most prolific fighters of our labor force. But in terms of seniority, not of your age, no? of your background, your service to the government, activism and all, kayo po yung mas paano ba ito? Mas qualified, should I say, not demeaning Calyody. What made you decide to be his vice president po? Kasi dati dapat pangulo kayo, tas biglang kayo ay nag-feel na lang bilang vice presidente niya. Pero do you see this tandem as a complementary tandem, not because of who's better or who's ano po? Pero do you see this tandem if ever you'll be lucky enough or destined to rule the country as president and vice president? Do you see this tandem working? Sinasabi niyo mga may connect po sa masa.
Oh yes, I'm quite confident of that, Michael. Alam mo naman, when I was being drafted to run for president, I really did not feel that I should be the one. Kasi on the one hand, there's the age factor. Okay? Okay. And, I know there are some politicians that run until they're 100, no? But that type. Kasi, age does impact on you. Second is yung energy, no? And I really did not feel at this point that that I had the energy to be president, no? Which is a 24-hour job yan, no? And then of course there's the other thing about what I really wanted to do. Yung na-mention ka na yung expertise ko naman is to be an analyst and a writer. And I felt that in my remaining years, that should be what I would focus on. That's why I was one of the people who urged na tumakbo si Calyody, no? And I was so happy when he did that, And and since he's there and he offers an energetic leadership that
Mhm.
is connected, sa masa, and offers a vision or a program for the country. So when I was asked, "Can you be his running mate?" I thought about it for a while. To be honest, I thought about it, but then the big factor that really convinced me is the possibility of
Mhm.
the threat
Ikaw
of
ba?
this
Mhm.
axis of evil of Duterte and
Mhm.
Marcos, no?
Mhm.
So that's when I decided. Ngayon, sa
Mhm.
tingin ko complementary yan kasi
Mhm.
gagap ni Calyode yung mga problems of the country. At the same time, um, he's got he's got energy, no? And I think that yung experience niya sa labor movement, no?
Mhm.
Na no compromise, he was always there on the streets, no? I think those are things that I can supplement,
Mhm.
with my own training in the social sciences, no? My expertise in some areas like political economy, politics, and then my previous experience in Congress, no? Where I was for 6 years. I was involved in legislation,
Mhm.
uh, and then as chair of the Committee on Overseas Workers Affairs, yung sense ko of what is really needed by our people, no?
Mhm.
So if you ask me then, Michael, complementary ba kami? I think so.
Mhm.
And um, I would get my leadership from him,
Mhm.
si Calyodi. And the other thing too that I wanted to say is that uh, nga kaming individuals, no? But you have to realize that Laban ng Masa, which is the big coalition
Mhm.
that is supporting us, gumawa yan ng isang programa, 25-point program
Yeah.
that was discussed over 3 months.
Mhm.
And nauna yan, no? Nauna yung choice, yung forging of the program, nauna yan kaysa sa choice
Before the
of
leadership.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, meron na kaming band, and the band is a program, no?
Mhm.
That's why I think we can work together. In fact, I don't think there is any other team like us right now. Hindi naman sa pagmamayabang, no?
Opo.
Yung prosesong dinaanan nitong paggagawa ng programa, yung proseso ng pagkukonbinse kay Calyodi, pagkukonbinse sa akin, yun yung mahalagang mahalaga, I think.
Mhm.
And
Yun yung nauna. Mhm.
yun ang nauna. At saka, to be honest, hindi kami politiko. Okay?
Mhm.
That's what separates us from the rest, no?
Mhm.
Kasi, to save politics in this country, you have to rely on non-politicians like Calyodi and me. Because the political class is terribly rotten at this point. And we can say that.
Yun po sana ang follow-up ko, Walden. In a perfect world, no, wherein kayong dalawa po ang mananalo, kasi we've tried so many other presidents and politicians and leaderships in the past. We've had celebrities, politicians, economists, and what have you. In a perfect world, wherein you and Calyodi will be, I wouldn't say lucky, or destined enough, to be able to attain the highest positions of the land, leadership positions of the land. Yung 25 point, very quickly, ano po yung pinaka, should I say, mararamdaman kaagad ng masa kung magkaroon po ng liderato na sinasabi nyo hindi mga traditional politicians, but who are connected or in touch with the masses po?
Yes, I must say, just to be clear, na yung 25 points na yun, we have compressed into 13 points, no?
Mhm.
Para it's more connected. People can get it more.
Not technical, not too, yung mga jargon. Opo.
Very clear. Well, I'll just give you some high points. No?
Sige po.
We plan to tax the wealth of the richest 250 individuals in the country by up to 3%. No? And that will yield about 1 trillion pesos. No? That kasi resources are finite, di ba? I mean, in order to be able to support the spending that our people need, you have to be able to get that from the very rich and deploy that, as transfer payments, social security payments, employment benefits, higher wages to the masses of the people. Kasi alam naman natin na napaki-skewed yung income distribution dito sa atin. Most of the wealth is going to the top 1% sa atin, whereas the lowest 50% of the country probably has only access to about 10% of the wealth of the country. No? So it's time for redistribution. And another thing is yung agrarian reform, no? Which has been one of my pet projects. I was one of the co-sponsors of yung Comprehensive Agrarian Reform with Extension Act noong 2009. Okay? Dapat makompleto na yan kasi we have 700,000 hectares of land that should be distributed according to the law and has not yet been distributed because the landlords in the country have prevented that. Another point is yung foreign debt natin. There's a lot of unjustified or onerous, debt that has been incurred, and those need to be eliminated, no? And so kailangan natin na yung mga proceeds natin na nanggagaling sa hindi natin pagbibigay or paying unjust debt, onerous debt, no? We can deploy that for local resources, no? And then one last thing I would say economically is kailangan ma-repeal yung Rice Tariffication Act. Because that's the main cause of the poverty of our farmers at this point. And alam mo, yung agriculture natin, nasira talaga ng World Trade Organization yan. All the concessions we made, we were once a very vibrant agricultural country. Back in, before the 1995, when we joined the WTO. And dahil sa trade liberalization, vegetables, chicken, hogs, meat, rice, corn, lahat niyan opened up to the destruction of our farmers. No? So
you're saying it was an economic trap?
Yes, of course. Alam nyo, even President Duterte, in his victory speech in Davao in late May 2016, he identified the World Trade Organization, the concessions we made, as the cause of the crisis of Philippine agriculture. He spent 10 minutes, binilang ko yan eh. Sabi ko, oh boy, si President-elect Duterte pala, binabasa yung mga sinusulat namin, yung research namin. And then, once he got into power, he turned his back and then was the signatory of the Rice Tariffication Act. Ngayon, if you look at just to make this point in terms of comparisons, who among the other candidates makes that, which is very important para sa ating mga magsasaka, makes that a priority for them? None. Okay? Even Senator Kiko Pangilinan, who's running for vice president, and he says that he's for agriculture, he supported the Rice Tariffication Act. No?
Mhm.
And Isko Moreno, when he was asked, ano bang gagawin nyo? Sabi niya, well, we have all sorts of international commitments and magfo-focus na lang daw siya sa mga things like cold storage facilities and that sort of thing. So, ang problema talaga natin at this point in time is none of the other candidates have a well thought out program based on hard analysis. No? And it's all the candidate first, okay, and then I'll think of my program later, and tama na ito kasi this has been the kind of way of doing politics that has really made our political and economic system so unresponsive to the needs of the people.
Walden, pagaanin ko lang to, no? Kasi sa ating mga manonood, sa ating mga nakikinig, yung rice tarification, it's a bit too heavy din, no? To understand. Are you saying, kasi one of the strengths of the Philippines is agriculture, and one of the things that is holding it back in terms of progression and alleviating the poor and our farmers is this kind of law, the Rice Tarification Act. Is that a proper context?
Yung Rice Tarification Act is that that means that yung mga protection, yung mga tariff protection, no? And yung mga quotas that used to protect our agriculture from massive
Importation.
from massive dumping by the US, the European countries, Thailand, Vietnam, tinanggal lahat yun. No? And ang naging problema talaga nito is that, and this is why I think I'm really pissed off at our politicians, kasi heavily subsidized yung mga agricultural production ng US, EU, Vietnam. Ang laki niyan, ang laki ng subsidization ng state, by the state. Up to about 40% of the cost of production. Siyempre, if farmers are being subsidized to 40% of the cost of production, then they can sell, the rice and the corn at very low prices kasi nakuha na nila in government subsidies. Yun ang nagiging problema natin ngayon. Ngayon, yung ating mga farmers, mambubukid, walang subsidies yan. No? Walang subsidies yan. Okay?
Paano pa napatupad ang isang batas na nagpapabor sa mga banyaga at tumutuligsa o nagpapahirap naman sa lokal nating mga manggagawa at mga magsasaka?
Well, ito na nga yung role of big international organizations like the World Trade Organization. And I come back to this. You don't need to be a specialist to know about this. Kasi alam ni President Duterte yan. I mean, he knew it. He analyzed it. But it's political will.
The lack of action on his part, you see po.
Yes, well, hindi lang yan. Malakas talaga yung pressure ng foreign interests like the World Trade.
May lobbying po kasi nangyayari. Walden, Ina, sorry. Susugan ko lang yung kanina nyo, no? Para i-contextualize ko lang. You plan to tax the rich by 3%. How do you plan to tax the poor?
Well, in terms of the poor, we really need to lighten their tax burden. Kasi alam nyo, ang problema talaga natin sa Pilipinas, most of the taxes fall on the poor. Not so much by income tax, pero yung mga...
But the value added.
Value-added tax, excise tax, consumption taxes, doon linalagay.
At ang sumasalo po noon yung common masa. Kahit yung naglilimos, binigyan mo ng 10 piso, yung 10 piso niya, pag bumili siya ng noodles, may VAT. So, ibig sabihin, nagbayad din siya ng tax. Ganun po ba?
Yeah.
Ganun po ba? Parang...
Yun na-transfer yung tax burden sa mahihirap at sa middle class. At dahil dyan, at saka pag nakita mo naman na napakaliit nung binabayad na mga mayayaman sa income tax o yung mga corporations sa income tax. So, with very little income taxes paid by the rich, okay, and great consumption taxes and excise taxes and VAT paid by the poor and the middle class, This is the problem. This is the
Opo.
very big
Iikot
problem.
lang.
And
At dagdagan ko, Walden. Yung sinasabi nyo ngayon, maliit na nga po yung tax na tinatax sa mga mayaman, nakakalusot pa, di ba? Hindi po religious yung pagsingil sa kanila. Nakakalusot pa kasi meron sila mga magagaling na accountant, magagaling na tax experts. Imbis na 10 bilyon, nagiging 100,000 na nga lang paminsan eh. Ganyan po yung disparity. So we're not getting the value of the tax at the existing law to tax the rich po ang nangyayari.
yeah,
Ganun po.
overall talaga, yung income tax natin is very regressive, and overall our tax system is quite regressive. So ito na nga yung malaking problema kasi you just don't manufacture money out of thin air. You have to get it from actual resources. Now, if the rich are the ones that are cornering, the vast, monetary resources of the country, then you have to find a way to tax them in order to transfer yung mga resources na yan sa mga mahihirap. No? So, isa yan talaga sa malalaking problema na meron ba, we ask, do any of the other candidates have a tax plan that is redistributionist, no? na will really create a new tax structure to favor the poor? We don't have them at this point in time. And ito na nga yung malaking problema natin ngayon kasi yung from the Marcos government up to Cory Aquino, up to Fidel Ramos, up to Erap, up to Gloria, Noy, no? They've adopted the same framework na tanggalin yung mga protection ng ekonomiya para sa mga mahihirap and just let open up the market to dumping by foreign goods and yung mga very fragile na protections to protect local investors. Ngayon malakas pa rin yung lobby to remove yung mga nationalist provisions ng ating constitution when it comes to the economy. So, yung tinatawag natin ng neoliberal framework, of promoting just an open economy that is dumped on by foreign goods and foreign investors and foreign capital, that's been the policies over the last, several administrations from the Marcos period on. And that's what we really need to change. Kaya malaki yung challenge talaga natin. If you are a political leader, you have to confront these big issues. No?
And not be pressured by the companies.
Yeah, right. And not be pressured by the
Which
companies.
gives you sponsorship when you have elections, which supports your campaign, which supports your PDAP and all. Ina?
Yeah.
Okay, so alam mo, I don't know I'm having a difficult time. Medyo choppy yata internet ko. Michael?
Yeah, we can hear you, Ina. Are you there? Yeah.
Okay. Ako naman, sir, well, moving forward, also still about what to expect during Calyo the Walden Bello administration. If you win, what will happen naman po to the Marcoses? What do you want to happen? Should people expect, let's say, Imelda Marcos to be imprisoned? We know she's been convicted of graft, but she's still there. And generally, sir, I'd like to get your thoughts on politicians who have been linked or convicted of graft and other crimes and are still very much active in government.
Well, I just to be very specific, I think that we would form a special team of young, vigorous lawyers who will go after all the tracks, all the routes to the Marcos wealth that have been hidden by all sorts of tax maneuvers and others. No? Alam naman natin that the real value of the Marcos wealth that's stashed outside is between 5 to 10 billion
$10 billion.
dollars. Yeah, and that's the estimates from different sources. No, yung na-recover dyan is just konti lang yan.
Fraction.
No?
No.
You
1 point
know,
something.
mga something of the present value of about 600 million pesos. That was recovered mainly because the Swiss government, confiscated it from all the different ways that the Marcoses were hiding it in Swiss foundations, no? And then turned that over to the Philippine government, no? And then the Philippine government therefore declared that public property, no? And said that this was confiscated from the Marcos wealth. And that $650 million was the basis of yung compensation ng mga Marcos
Victims.
of martial law. People who, the families of those who died, yung mga political prisoners, torture, and that sort of thing. No? But the point is that there's much more out there. And I think we will definitely go after Amy and Bongbong for participation in the concealment of national wealth. No? And I think if you have a determined political and very skillful legal team, we'll be able to do that. And of course, prosecution would follow.
Sir, I just have to ask, bakit young? You mentioned kanina a team of young lawyers. Why do you specifically want young lawyers to handle this?
Because young lawyers, though they might not have that much experience, they're also determined. No? They're idealistic yan at hindi sila nakokorrupt ng system. No? And I think we have those. We have those young people that are being produced by the system at this point and would like to do good. No? So, kasi pagkahanap ka sa, well, hindi naman sa we're being ageist, not that I'm just saying that usually the people that you find who are going to go all the way, you usually can find that among the idealistic young and experience, they can gain experience in the process. So that's your generation, Ina, and younger, of course.
To put in context, I agree. I get your point on young, energetic prosecutors. But what's to say that almost all of the administration in the past have already designated a fact-finding or like the PCGG. It has taken them so many years up to now. To put it in context, again, 2025, we're paying it until 2025 po, yung utang po na sinasabi na inutang po ng administrasyon ni Ferdinand Marcos. At just recently, si Senator Ping Lacson po ang sabi nga yung inutang naman ni Duterte would make us to 20-something. May utang po tayo yung ngayon na hindi pa pinapanganak na 120,000 naman. So parang nangyayari po talaga dito, lahat tayo talaga may utang na bago pa tayo pinapanganak. What's to say po na it's not going to be the same? And if it's going to be the same on your part, if you become the leaders of the land, is it because kapag nando na, meron ding mga forces behind it which are political, which are favored, parang ganon, which are may mga compromise na hindi po talaga natin makuha-kuha o matukoy o may paglaban ito pong sinasabing tago at nakaw na yaman? Ganun po ba?
Yes, totoo yan. I think that you should just expect that you would be up against these forces. No? Ang problems kasi in the past administrations, among the problems was yung election financing. no?
Mhm.
Alam naman natin yung mga politiko pupunta sa mga bilyonaryo,
Naku nga eh.
and once they get funded, then even before they sit, ang dami na nilang utang in terms of utang sa mga bilyonaryo
Mhm.
na funded them, no? That's why yung kampanya namin is not taking any money, or we are not seeking support from mga billionaires dito sa atin.
Opo. Pero I must add, Walden, si Bongbong sabi niya hindi rin siya kukuha ng kahit anuman na pondo sa iba dahil baka daw magkaroon ng problema dito sa sinasabing ang pabor-pabor pagkatapos singilan.
Well, alam naman natin si Bongbong is a multi-billionaire,
Okay. Opo, yun na yan.
I mean, so he pangpan na lang yan, pang-pogi-pogi lang, but basically they're one of the wealthiest families in the country.
Yeah. Mhm.
And that's it. So basically I think ganyan yan, Michael. We are not taking any funds. We're just relying on mga contributions from ordinary
Volunteers.
people. And I think as our campaign progresses, we will get more and more of itong mga small donations, and we'll just put it together. The other thing too that we're relying on is we hope that the press will give us fair play, and kagayang ginagawa nyo ngayon na
Opo.
hindi lang ililim
Bigating
yung mga coverage.
Normal.
Alam mo na?
Ang hirap banggitin ng salita, hindi tayo makahanap ng salita eh. Yun na nga po, sila na dapat na lagi na lang nasa harap ng media, ang ibig sabihin. Opo. Bilang professor po ng social sciences, Prof, di ba parang, syempre dapat meron din kayong ano dito, no? Sa nagbabagong panahon natin, ito po, the great equalizer is social media. Ika nga, no? Dati, ang ano mo lang, TV commercials, parang ganyan, to reach the far-flung places of the Philippines, parang ganyan. Pero ngayon, social media has somehow, di ba, contributed to leveling the playing field. Will social media on your team, Caliodi and Walden Bello, play a really pivotal part in your campaign? And how would you, as professor of social sciences po, no, how would you reach out to the masses? And kahit hindi nga yung masses, yung middle class, even the rich, how can you convince them that your tandem can be beneficial? Di ba? Hindi lang yung parang, pag itong dalawa tumakbo, patay ang negosyo. Parang sasabihin ng ibang mga dambuhalang korporasyon, di ba? Parang, how will you have this parang connect with them that, yung sinasabi nyo nga po, no, not to say na kasalanan na maging mayaman, pero sinasabi, kahit mayaman ka, you must understand that there are social responsibilities attached to this, and hindi dapat ganito na ang kita mo. Mabubuhay ka naman, mayaman ka pa rin, pero syempre, share your wealth. Ano po yung parang inyong plan dito? Have you thought about this?
Well, definitely, yung main appeal namin will be to the poor and the middle class, no? And make sure that we are not alone in pushing this agenda, kundi we can rely on them, through mobilization, through public opinion, through all sorts of mechanisms that makes a political force something that can influence the Senate and the House. No, so yan mahalaga talaga yan. And ang sinabi mo na yung, of course, we will be using social media, and we are appealing to the media, traditional media, for fair play. No, and kasi even at this point, you cannot just discount the traditional media because they still play an important role.
Yeah.
But yung of course yung problema namin dyan is that while the other candidates can spend so much in terms of TV spots, we cannot. We'll just have to rely on the goodwill of yung mga nagko-cover ng news, opinion makers, to allow us to get equal time that matches yung mga ads, no? And so meron kami naman mga experience, like for instance, I had experience in pushing through 3 pieces of legislation na made a big difference for people but were not easy to push. Yung siguro alam niyo na ito, yung and Michael, yung reproductive health bill. Okay, I was one of the principal sponsors along with sila Congressman Lagman, and we were up against very, very powerful forces, no, including the Catholic Church hierarchy, and yet we were able to win back in 2013, no. Yung comprehensive agrarian reform legislation, yung extension in 2009, talagang inopose ng mga landed elements yan, but we were able to form a winning coalition in Congress to push it through, no? So yan yung mga experiences namin that you need not only to bring the people with you to open up yung Senate and the House, no, and show that you have the force of the people behind you, but you also need smart legislative tactics, no, and yung combination of the people with good legislative skills and of course presidential skills, no, you can form a winning bloc. It's not impossible. It's hard. Uphill struggle yan, but it can be done. And yung tanong mo kanina rin, Michael and Ina, yung what was really you had so many investigations and that sort of thing that happened, but very little was achieved. And I think it's principally, not because of the skills of the investigators, no. Alam naman natin, ang dami silang roots na uncover. It was the political will of the administrations, the presidents, to pursue,
it continues further.
Push further and to really bring about a real change, no? So nasa sa leadership yan, nasa political leadership. And if you look at all the previous administrations, doon nagkulang, doon nagkulang. The political leadership, when it faced the choices that it faced, that it would be hurting interests that had a lot of power, umatras sila.
May pressure, ika nga, no? May outside pressure. So bago po tayo magratatat, Ina, ito na lang, last na lang ako. No? I would like to pick your brain on this, di ba? Si Ina, ako, ikaw, yun yung generation parang gano'n. Ina, hindi ka naman sobrang bata, ha? Baka naman akala nila gano'n, ha? Okay. Ito po, do you see any generation, di ba lahat naman po tayo parang hindi tayo maintindihan ng tatay natin o ng lolo natin may ganung generational gap. But this generation, Sir Walden, do you see, is it a far cry to your generation, to mine, to Ina's, etong generation po na nangyayari? Because social media has opened this up already, no? Marami tayong nakikita na parang they believe in so many things which are sokmed, parang ganun. Do you see, may problema ba kayo nakikita sa generation natin? How to convince younger people and how to make them aware and how for them to be participative in nation building, in social awareness, di ba? Not discounting. Kasi sabihin nila, oh, ano na sinasabi, matanda ka na, parang gano'n. How can we all have this parang construct wherein we can be unified as a nation or as a people?
Yes, I mean, merong mga generational differences, no, in terms of the way that for instance the Marcoses are viewed, no.
So yun.
In terms of the current generation, because they did not live through the Marcos period, maybe they might be more susceptible to this false
Narrative.
narrative of changing the narrative about what happened. It was 14 years of nightmare. Suddenly the Marcoses have tried using their their social media, their thousands of trolls to try to convince people that that was actually a golden age, no? So pero sa tingin ko superficial lang yan. When our younger generation are confronted with the realities na the Marcoses left the country with $25 billion in debt, that you had 11,000 political prisoners, over 3,000 people killed. When you confront them with the cold realities, they begin to see that we've just
really happened.
Propaganda on this. So, and I have worked with younger people where we base ourselves on the level of facts. Ito nangyari, okay, and then they can relate to what you're saying. So sa tingin ko, as long as you are on the side of truth, okay, you can reach out, to all generations, no,
and conversation is done.
Conversation is done. Ang malaking problema lang kasi, Michael and Ina, yung in terms of educating our young on what happened during the martial law period, hindi talaga yan binigyan ng pansin ng mga post-Marcos governments, no? At iniwan na lang yung mga textbooks sa atin sa mga bureaucrats ng Department of Education na alam na, sinasabi ng mga bata sa akin na ang alam lang ho namin ito yung ginawa
ni piso. Oo. 500 piso lang.
Yung ginawa ni Quirino, ito yung ginawa ni Garcia, ito yung ginawa ni Macapagal, ito yung ginawa ni Marcos, without any judgment, no? About what happened during this periods, kundi parang historical succession lang.
Dapat may proactive history.
Sure. So I think that malaki yung responsibility ng generation natin na hindi itinulak yung actual really good education on what happened during those 14 years. And because of that, we're now paying the price that a lot of people are thinking that, wow, that was a golden age. So don't blame the young. We should blame ourselves, our generation, for not undertaking that effort. But that having been said, then we have a lot of catching up to do. Alam niyo, Michael, yung Marcos Compensation and Reparations Act, no? That was the first piece of legislation na may educational component yan na ituturo sa mga ating mga young generations what really happened. I mean, I'm very proud of that. I was one of the principal authors of that. But can you imagine 2013, wala pang government legislative effort that was passed to have a real education on what happened during martial law, no? 2013, that was so many years, almost 40 years after the dictatorship. So this is where we need a lot of catching up to do, and we must never let this happen again. Kasi importante itong historical memory and if people don't have that historical memory, then yung sinasabi mo, Michael, if I come out and yung mga posts ko nga sa Facebook, yung mga posts na yan, it just meets with hindi lang trolls, siguro may yung mga responses diyan, oy, matanda, ano ba?
Parang frustrated na lang tayo, parang gano'n.
Wala kayong ginawa, gano'n. So, naintindihan ko kung saan nanggagaling yun. So, yun, we have a lot of work to do. Pero the important thing is to confront realities and provide good solutions, even if those solutions hurt. No? Kasi, again, and this is the reason why I think non-politicians who run for electoral office, no matter how distasteful it is to them, because I hate politics. I hate traditional politics. No? Alam mo, nung nasa Kongreso ako for 6 years, I just had to swallow my distaste of all of that. No? To try
Mahirap
to
talaga.
get some things done. Pero you have no choice because the politicians are going to screw it up if you leave it up to them. It's up to non-citizens to come in and rectify the process, no? And yan
Kumbaga,
talaga.
you've seen darkness po. To encapsulate it, naniniwala pa rin tayong lahat na ang kabataan ang pag-asa ng ating bayan. Ina, magratatat na tayo. At tayo overtime. Go.
Oo nga,
Ina.
okay.
Oras na tayo, no? Wow.
Oo nga eh.
Ito, sarap na usapan kaya eh. Hindi natin
Maybe
namalayan
next,
eh.
no, for sure
Opo.
we'll have...
We'll have you again.
again.
That's a promise. Game.
Because
Ina.
I also have other questions yung mga position nila on abortion.
Oo nga, ang dami eh. Diba, kakapost
And
nga lang
other
yan
more
kanina.
concrete
Endeavors.
sana.
Next time po.
Anyway, we have a lot of time. We now move on sa ating ratatat. Sir, ang ratatat po, ang ibig sabihin po niyan ay ratsyadang tanong, tapatan at tarantahan. So,
Yan, nakakabata po ito.
mabilisang tanungan at sagutan. These are just one-word answers usually. If you want to give an explanation, you can or you may. Maikli lang po sana so we can keep it fast-paced.
Yan. Okay. At dahil millennial po tayo and we surpass generations. Okay? We go beyond generations. Are you familiar? Tatanungin na po namin kayo ng question, handa na ba you? Yan. Sasagot ka syempre nang naintindihan nila. Handa na mi. Kapag sumagot po kayo ng handa na mi, doon tayo mag-i-start. Okay? Sige. Ina, tanungin na natin.
Okay.
Professor, Congressman, Vice Presidential, Walden Bello. Handa na ba you?
Handa na ba you?
Yeah, handa na mi.
Ratatat! Ratsadang tanong, tapatan at tahan.
Okay, the first part is pili nuts. Ibig sabihin, pili lang po kayo ng isa sa mga sasabihin ko. Very light lang po, sir, ha? Baka magulat si sir sa mga tanong. Mag-swimming sa beach o mag-hiking sa bundok?
Mag-swimming sa beach.
Oh. Umattend sa rock and roll concert or mag-yoga?
Definitely umattend sa rock and roll concert.
Rock and roll! Yan!
Tapos ang YouTube, papunta ako ron.
Yeah, YouTube.
Okay. Kung hindi ka aktivista, anong ibang trabaho ang bagay sa'yo? Secret agent o ambassador?
Secret agent kasi naging secret agent na talaga ako. Hindi ba?
Yeah.
Ang dami kong ninakaw na dokumento sa World Bank.
Yun nga, hindi natin na pag-usapan eh. Opo. Yan, hindi natin na pag-usapan yun. Kaya nasa ratatat po yan. Pero hindi natin na pag-usapan kanina. Sige, go, Ina.
Okay, ito naman.
Ito pa isa.
Akyat bahay o locksmith?
Yan eh.
Akyat bahay o locksmith? Locksmith kasi ganun kami pumasok sa World Bank noon.
Nagnakaw siya ng 3 dokumento ba ng World Bank no? Kasi ginamit niya yung dokumento na yon sa investigasyon, parang gano'n. So yun yung konteksto noon, Ina. Okay, go.
Presidential food taster or chef?
Chef. Kasi
mahilig magluto.
Determine what the president will eat, and if I don't like the president,
Okay.
Ito naman. Okay, pili nuts, pintor o tubero?
Yan. Nag-iisip si Kawalden. Okay, ano?
siguro,
Pintor.
Pintor, okay.
Ano ang mas gusto ninyo? UP o Ateneo?
Yan, naku.
Malaking choice ito. Okay.
Sige.
Of course, my
Madali, nahirapan.
is Ateneo. Kaya lang yung professional life ko was at UP.
UP.
So, I would say by a whisker. Whisker lang.
Mister.
UP.
Ano? UP. Okay.
Okay, ito na ba? Pili nuts, democracy o socialism?
Yan. Hindi maaring i-separate yan. Actually, democratic socialism.
Yan. Okay.
Okay, ito po ng next. Idealism or activism?
Yan.
Well, activism. You know.
Okay. And last, government of the people or for the people?
Government by the people ba or for the people?
Of
The people or for? Wala yung by.
Okay. Government of the people.
Yan. Ito po ha, charot o true lalo. Ngayon mo lang babanggitin siguro sa kanang buhay mo. Ang charot po, hindi totoo. Ang true lalo, totoo. Gets mo? Okay. Okay. Charot o true lalo? Naniniwala ka ba na magre-retiro na si PRRD sa politika?
Charot? Hindi to know.
Yeah. Ang ganda nga, Walden. Okay. Naniniwala ka ba na hindi na tatakbo sa national election si Inday Sara?
Charot?
Yan. Okay.
Okay.
Naniniwala ka ba sa kasabihan na power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely?
True or no?
Yan. True lalo. Okay. Ang kasalanan ba ng ama ay kasalanan din ng anak?
Pag yan, kasi kasama yung anak sa kasalanan, pag kasama yung anak sa kasalanan, true lalo.
Wala pa akong binabanggit kung sino yun, ha? Ang sinungaling ba ay kapatid ng magnanakaw?
Sorry? Ano yun?
Ang sinungaling ba ay kapatid ng magnanakaw?
True lalo. And alam ko naman you're referring to Bongbong Marcos.
Wala pa akong sinasabi, kaya Walden, niyo ako idamay dito. Okay. Tama na mo. Ang hindi lumingon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi lang naliligaw, kung hindi makakarating sa paroroonan.
True lalo.
Yeah. No, Ina.
Ang sunod naman po, ang sagot po ninyo ay urong, mga kapatid, or sulong.
May ganun yun, Walden, ha? Aktivista eh. Urong, mga kapatid, o sulong, mga kapatid. Ayan.
Urong o
Game.
sulong, mga kapatid. Death penalty.
Urong, mga kapatid.
Ganun. Urong.
Divorce?
Divorce.
Divorce.
Sulong, mga kapatid.
Yan.
Federalism.
Ano?
Federalism.
Sulong, mga kapatid.
Communist Party of the Philippines.
No comment for the time being.
Ay, parang mas malaman yun Okay. Urong o sulong, mga kapatid.
Urong, sulong
China's incursion in the West Philippine Sea.
Sulong, mga kapatid.
Yan.
Contractualization.
Sulong, mga kapatid.
Social revolution.
Sulong, mga kapatid.
Okay, go Michael.
Okay, ito, last na po ito. Pero dahil kayo isang prolific writer, napakaraming librong sinulat ni Walden Bello, magbibigay ka sa akin ng titulo sa gagawin mong libro, ha, tungkol sa mga personalidad na ito na maglalarawan sa kanilang katauhan. Okay, title. Ayan. Alam ko malikot din ang inyong isip eh. Anong title mo kung magsusulat ka ng libro kay Lenny Robredo?
The Yellow Rose.
Yan, dahil nagdano na. The Yellow Rose. Pangalawa.
Okay.
Isko Moreno.
Kay Isko Moreno, it's all show, no substance.
Yan. Okay. Na-comment ako doon. Pero magandang title yun, ha? Magandang title. Ang gaganda ng mga title. Kaya dapat sa'yo ako hihingi ng mga tips pang title. Ping Lacson. Pangatlo.
The hero of Kuratong Baleleng.
Okay. Ano tuloy ako? Pangapat, Manny Pacquiao.
My dear Vice Chairman who did not work at all.
Ay, ba't ako tumawa? Ba't ako tumatawa? Nano lang ako, nasamid lang ako.
Okay, go.
Bato de la Rosa.
Mussolini's alter ego.
Okay. Bigyan mo ng mga title niya. Leody de Guzman. Yan. O, sige, tingnan natin ang title mo kay Leody.
Hero of the labor movement.
Yan. O, last na ito, ha? Title for Walden Bello.
My confessions.
Yeah.
Sa next guesting mo, alamin natin anong mga confessions mo, sir. Salamat! Woohoo! Ratatak! Ratsadang tanong, tapatan at tarang, tahan.
Okay, thank you very much. We hope you enjoyed
Ang
this
ganda,
session
oh.
of Ratatat.
Oo.
Vice Presidential Aspirant Professor Walden Bello. We will of course prepare another one for you next time.
Kasi ikaw na nag-open ng Pandora's box sa title mo, My Confessions. So next time, we will be hearing your confessions or your actual confessions. Walden, a few words po for our listeners and for your voters who would like to know more about you and your platforms.
Well, konti lang sasabihin ko. Siguro yung mga voters, please look at yung comprehensive program that we are presenting. We are not a personality-based candidacy. We stand for ideas, no, and proposals. And not only that, hindi lang kami ideas and proposal, we have a record. No? We have a record of having been in the battle constantly, whether in Congress or the streets, no? And judge us by those records that we have, as well as yung program that we propose, because talaga kailangan na talaga natin ng bagong politika sa atin at bagong ekonomiya. Alam ko maraming nagsabi nito sa nakaraan, pero kami ni Calio, they are determined to, bring this about. And we cannot promise you really anything, unlike the others politicians that can promise everything under the sun, no? But the main thing we can promise you is, we will fight for you, okay? And you have to be with us when we win, kasi without your support, we're not going to be able to implement our program. So, collective project ito. Hindi kami politiko that promise you that this is what we'll give you. Ang promise lang namin, mahirap, uphill struggle, pero pagkasama namin kayo, tayo ay mananalo. So we're there for you, and you're there for us.
All right. Thank you very much, Valerie, for your service.
Sir, good night na po sa inyo. Thank you for spending your Monday night with us. Or a Sunday night pa lang para sa amin eh. Yeah.
Kala ko nasa Toronto ka sa evening rin yan.
Yes,
Apo.
yes.
Okay. Sige.
Sunday night dito.
Magkita lang tayo. I'll be back in Manila in early November. So,
Yan, sige.
Okay.
Sige, Valerie, sa susunod po. Salamat po. Hope you enjoyed. Bye-bye.
Okay, we are
Yan.
super overtime but very informative, ano?
malaman.
Naman si Professor Walden. Very clear with their plans.
Konting basa ka dahil nagtatampo na ang ating mga
Okay, hello.
mga listeners, hindi sila
Naku,
napapansin.
hindi ko babasahin yung iba ha, kasi these are mean comments yung iba. Prudencio, Pilabil Navarro, isa ka na dyan. Gina Kinsan. Hello, Froilan Abuluyan. Sabi niya, aktivista ka din, Bello. Ayaw mo ikwento ang nangyari ng martial law kung para kanino ang martial law. Okay, Gina Kinsan. hello, talagang iniingatan ko yung mga
Yung mga sinasabi nila. Oo.
LD
Yeah.
Santos. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat. Diyan po nagtatapos ang Politiskoop ngayong umaga. We will see you on Wednesday.
Yay! Oh, MWF na kami palagi ni Ina.
Yes,
Okay?
MWF.
Ayan, yan ang announcement ha. MWF. Yan. Ang
Yes,
partner
MWF
ng bayan.
and we
Ang partner,
promise you should
ang partner ng bayan. Ang tambalan ng bayan. Yan. Bahala na kayo sa buhay niyo.
watch out dahil MWF na kami, makaka-focus na kami on
guesting
adding more
natin.
segments to our fun program. Kung meron kayong mga suggestion, feel free to comment kung anong gusto nyo makita, marinig. Baka may suggestion kayo ng mga bagong segment.
Saka please watch yung aming publicity material na pinopost namin prior to the guest para makapaghanda na kayo o makapagbigay na kayo yung mga tanong. Yan.
Yes,
Diba?
okay.
Para
So
nababasa
again,
namin
see
yan.
you on Wednesday. Happy Monday, everybody. Ako po si Ina Andolong.
Michael Fajatin po. Bye! Love ya!
Guys.
Ang Coronavirus Disease 2019 o COVID-19 ay isang nakakahawang sakit dulot ng bagong diskubre na coronavirus. Ang virus na ito ay karaniwang natatagpuan sa mga hayop at hindi pa nakita sa mga tao noon. Base sa World Health Organization, ang karaniwang sintomas na dulot ng COVID-19 ay lagnat, pagkapagod at dry cough. Ilan sa mga pasyente ay nakaranas ng sipon at baradong ilong, sore throat, at diarrhea. Samantala, isa lamang sa 6 na pasyente ang nagkakaroon ng hirap sa paghinga at nagiging malubha ang kalagayan. Meron naman mga individual na tinatawag na asymptomatic o mga nagpositibo sa COVID-19 ngunit hindi nagkaroon ng simptomas at hindi nakaramdam ng anumang sakit. Habang patuloy pa rin dinidevelop at sinusuri sa pamamagitan ng mga clinical trial ang bakuna at mga piling gamot laban sa COVID-19, maaari mo pa rin pigilan ang paglaganap nito. Paalala ng mga eksperto, kung wala namang gagawin sa labas, manatili lamang sa bahay. Obserbahan ang physical distancing. Siguraduhin na napapanatili mo ang 1 metro o higit pa na layo sa ibang tao. Maghugas ng kamay. Iwasang hawakan ang iyong mata, ilong at bibig. Magsuot ng face mask. Ugaliin ding takloban ang iyong ilong at bibig kung uubo at babahing. Kapag nakaramdam naman ng lagnat, ubo at hirap sa paghinga, magpatingin na sa doktor. Tandaan, walang problema na hindi nalalagpasan. Makinig at sumunod sa mga payo ng mga eksperto para manatiling ligtas.